What's going on, everybody? Uncle Filthy, and welcome back to the Media Hub. We continue the Return to Elm Street series. Today we are, of course, looking at the MTV entry. I want my MTV, you want your MTV. We're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Let's go.
I watch MTV every morning when I get up for a couple hours. And then right around breakfast time, I watch it for a little bit more. And then about lunch when I feed the fish, I feed the fish and watch them watch MTV. And then about supper time, me and the dog Feedback, we watch MTV. You can never have too much structure in your life.
Well, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is definitely the beginning of the rockstar version of Freddy. At this point, he's not just a guy in a horror movie, he's like a full-blown celebrity in the 1980s. And this movie definitely has that sort of energy. It has a real music video type of feel to it. There's a reason why they call it the MTV Nightmare on Elm Street. One of the things that I think is pretty well known about this film is that they had a lot of the nightmare sequences sort of idealized before the story itself. And you can kind of see that in just how big and over the top the nightmares are starting to become this time around. And they were sort of writing the film as they were going along, so it's like, we've got the nightmares, let's focus on story second. You really see that sort of being a thing when you watch Nightmare 4. And I don't know if that was part of my issue with this film for the longest time, because I think it's pretty well known on this channel that this is probably the one I would consider the most frustrating Nightmare on Elm Street. Because it ebbs and flows the most in the ranking. It sort of moves around. It could be in the top half, but then it could go down to the bottom half. It's that weird mushy middle. So I'll start straight up with just some positives on this film. Visually, it might be the most interesting Nightmare on Elm Street film. It's definitely one of the funnest ones to look at. The nightmares really have a lot to do with that, just because they're so over the top. I mean, you have this weird optical illusion in the depth of the room with Sheila's death. The whole cockroach motel, that's a really wild scene to watch. Alice's nightmare, where she goes to the theater and gets sucked into the screen, taken to the diner. That might be the legitimate scariest thing in this film. I think we've all envisioned that, being stuck at a dead-end job for the rest of our lives, and she sort of gets to see that in a nightmare, and I think that scene is super effective. And the Rick scene even, that might be the most frustrating scene in the whole movie, honestly. Atmospherically, I really like that scene. The whole setting is really cool, just sort of that opium den dojo looking deal. It looks really cool. Does it fit Nightmare on Elm Street? That's a weird question, honestly, because you figure, okay, if this is all going to be in your dreams, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. So, trying to put the positive spin on that, playing devil's advocate, I like the way that scene is set. Just the whole invisible Freddy, I think, really brings that scene down just a bit. But visually, man, this film is a lot of fun. And despite the story being sort of written on the go, this one does feel actually really well connected to the previous film. You gotta sort of disregard the recasting of Kristen. I'm trying to not let that dampen my enjoyment of Dream Master this time around. I don't know, just that connective tissue, it does feel somewhat natural from the previous film. It does feel like we might have missed a couple chapters there. I think this film could have been a little more interesting had we stuck with the survivors from Dream Warriors for at least a little bit longer than we did. Again, bringing them in, it does create that connectivity, but they're in and out of the film. It just, I don't know, I feel like it was kind of a disservice, especially to Joey and Kincaid, just how quickly they're knocked out. It would have been really great to see Patricia Arquette return. I feel had Patricia come on board, maybe Kristen's role could have been sort of enlarged a little bit. I forget exactly how all the behind the scenes production stuff went on that, but I don't know. That's one of those big what ifs, I think, in the Nightmare franchises. What if this had been a little more of a better written follow-up? But, you know, the characters that we get in substitution for the Dream Warriors, they're not too bad. I mean, they're starting to become those sort of, like you'd see in the latter-day Friday the 13th films, those sort of cookie-cutter characters. They've got that one personality trait that's sort of brought in, and, alright, that's going to be associated with your nightmare and how you die. You know, the characters are still memorable, and I pretty much know all of their names, so, you know, they're not that unforgettable. So that's always one of those things that I figure is, okay, the characters don't really suck if you remember them. And the passing of the torch from Kristen to Alice, I think, was a pretty interesting choice. A choice that I don't hate, because I love Alice as a final girl in the Nightmare films. Again, it's just a matter of, it felt like it happened a little too early into the film. It's like we just meet Alice, we barely get to know who she is and what she's about, but we get just a little bit of enough there. I don't know, if it had come later in the film and her relationship with Kristen had been allowed to blossom just a little bit more, it would have been a little bit more compelling when Kristen dies, gives her power over to Alice, and I don't know. I don't hate the way they did it. I just wish that it had a little more time to breathe in the film. But, you know, I like where it went with it. Alice's power of being able to actually leech and mimic people's abilities, that was a pretty cool dream power. But, you know, the dynamic between the characters that we get, it's believable enough, but again, kind of using that cookie cutter template that you would see in some of the Friday films being echoed in here. The friend group just doesn't feel like it's genuine. A lot of these people don't really seem like they would be part of that same friend group, unless maybe they're the sort of misfit of each other respective group like that, you know, where Debbie looks like a hair metal chick, but she's also into working out. And then you got Sheila, who is kind of the bookworm. Alice is just kind of that quiet girl. Dan being the jock. You know, they don't feel like the most natural friend group. But Freddy Krueger, man, that's the guy that we're here to talk about.
Who?
Krueger. The Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Oh, I've never seen any of those.
I think Robert Englund is definitely still in that sort of peak Freddy mode here. He's still a little bit menacing, but he's definitely leaning more into the goofy side.
Oh, my favorite. Eeny, meeny, miny.
A little scary, but he is understanding that, alright, yeah, I'm a bit of a celebrity, I'm a rock star, I'm a big deal. You sort of see that in Robert's performance, and, you know, it's still, I think, one of the funner Freddys. Like, Dream Warriors had him at the most balanced. Here, I think this is just Freddy at the most fun. I'd probably say in the whole franchise, honestly. I think Freddy's demise in this film definitely has a feeling of finality to it. Like, if they hadn't been able to continue after this point, it would have definitely felt like a good way to end the series. Just the way you see all the souls leaving his body at the end of the film, and they all kind of move on to the better part of the afterlife. You know, it just creates this real feeling of, alright, we have vanquished the evil, there's no potential future threat of Freddy. I don't know, it just has a real nice feeling of finality to it. I'm sure you guys remember when I was talking about Dream Warriors, this was one of the last original Nightmares that I actually got around to seeing. This might have actually been the last of the original run that I saw, actually. Again, I had mentioned that seeing the preview for it on the Nightmare 2 VHS, this one had so much going on in that trailer that it really got me thinking, alright, this is probably going to be the best Nightmare on Elm Street. And maybe that's part of why I'm constantly frustrated with this film, is because the initial sort of expectation I had for it, it just wasn't really met, you know. That's not to say that I don't like this film. I have a blast with it every time I watch it. It's just when you compare it to all the other ones, it just feels so weird, middle of the road like. But this time I really did have a lot of fun with it. I think when I first reviewed it, I was probably taking a sort of negative approach on it. That's really not the case this time around. I don't know, I think it was just the unrealistic expectation that I had set for it. Who's to say unrealistic, but, you know, I was expecting the best, and it wasn't that, and I don't know. Well, we're going to crack open the vault real quick, take a look at some of the filthy features from 2020. What did I have to say back then?
Well, don't fall asleep, because it is time for the favorite dream. Dan and Alice in that fucking we're going around in circles dream, and this is another one of those interwoven ones, because it's interwoven with Debbie's death scene, and just the way, like, when you watch that for the first time, if you're watching it on like DVD or Blu-ray, you might get a little freaked out thinking, oh fuck, is my disc skipping? Is my player messing up? Like, I remember first time seeing that, I'm like, wait, what the fuck is going on here? And it was just a clever little way for Freddy to take someone out while fucking with two other people. So moving on once more to the man who laid the bricks for the house that Freddy built. It is time for Spotting Shay. We see Bob Shay giving a lecture in one of the scenes in this film. It's I think this is right before Rick's death, if I'm remembering correctly. He's giving a lecture, and he doesn't sound very enthused. It's about I think it's something about dreams. Like, I already forgot what he's talking about there, but I don't know, he made Ben Stein look like he has more fucking personality and emotion going on. And now, the one-liner. The Freddy quipper of this film. This is an obvious one, and it's from Joey's dream, and it's, how's this for a wet dream? I know that's kind of a cheesy one, but I mean, all the fucking one-liners in this one that Freddy gives are cheesy.
Revisiting this one, it was actually a lot more fun this time around. I watched it a few times actually this time, just so I really had a feeling of, alright, where do I stand on this one? This might be hopefully the last time I review Nightmare 4. And that's not to say that I don't want to revisit it at some point later, but I definitely I went into it this most recent time wanting to enjoy it more, and for the most part I did. You know, like I said, I had fun with it. It's definitely one of the most visually intriguing ones, as I said before. It still frustrates me in a lot of ways, though, and it's just sort of the handling of the characters from the third film. Just that sort of rushed writing process, which you kind of see, but you have so much fun with the movie that it's almost a non-issue. So that's kind of where I stand with Nightmare 4 this time around. Yeah, the Dream Master definitely captures the height of Freddy mania. It was definitely full throttle at this point. Again, you get a really fun film out of it. Maybe not the most cohesive piece of art, but, you know, that's completely subjective there. And at the end of the day, guys, I gotta give Nightmare on Elm Street 4 The Dream Master 2.5 Dojo Champion Opium Dens out of 5. So that was a lot of fun, guys, revisiting Nightmare on Elm Street 4 The Dream Master. I definitely gotta say, I think I had a better experience with the film this time around. Trying to really illustrate that point here. It was a lot of fun to talk about it again. I want to thank you guys for watching. Be on the lookout for all the other great content that's coming out on the channel. Be sure to go down below here, play with the icons as you see fit. Let me know what you guys think of Nightmare 4. Where does it stand in the series for you? Let me know all that down below. See you in the next one.
Should Patricia Arquette be digitally reinserted into this film? George Lucas style?